Thank you, Mr. Caton. May I first give my congratulations to my honourable friend for Gloucester for initiating this debate. I think the quality of his speech and the thoughtfulness of his remarks will be well noted by this House and our colleagues. And I think it's quite noticeable that the support of all my honourable friends here and elsewhere for apprenticeships in this House has definitely been something that has increased from what I'm told in previous parliaments. I'm very grateful for my honourable friend and to the Minister for giving me permission to speak in this debate. I spoke at length about apprenticeships in my maiden speech on the 2nd of June, and I said then that 1 in 8 adults in Harlow have literacy problems and 1 in 5 have difficulties with numeracy. We have a huge skills deficit with nearly 4,000 young people not in employment, education or training. Harlow is one of the worst affected towns. And I've come to the conclusion that education and skills are the real answer to these problems, but that we must transform the nature of vocational training and apprenticeships in our country. If we give young people the necessary skills and training, we give them the opportunities and jobs for the future. Expanding and improving apprenticeships is not just about economic efficiency based on pure utilitarianism. It involves the profoundly conservative ideas of helping people to help themselves, of a work ethic, of opportunity, and most importantly, of social justice. I've seen for myself the power of apprenticeships to transform lives, and I have 2 substantial points in this debate, which are, firstly, a change in policy must be supported by a change in culture. And secondly, Essex County Council, to talk about the Essex County Council scheme, which has been alluded to by my honourable friend, which runs a pioneering apprenticeship scheme, which I believe could be replicated around the United Kingdom. I would say, despite the grand wishes of the last government, they made going to university its primary symbol of aspiration. And this, to me, came at the expense of vocational training. The Right Honourable Member for South Shields, Mr Miliband, says he wants 60% of all young people to go to university. And not so long ago, when young people went to university, they used to get their picture in the local newspaper. In fact, I remember being in my local newspaper just having gone, but being only the second member of my family to have ever gone to university. Now, youngsters are burdened with debt and struggle to find skilled jobs when they graduate. Smart young people out there, looking at their options, are beginning to recognise that a university degree isn't always the right qualification. One size does not fit all. The problem is, as I see it, that apprenticeships still lack cachet. There is no graduating ceremony, there is little institutional prestige, and there are few opportunities to network and make friends. The social side doesn't hold a candle to university. And there is also a perception problem. The apprenticeship organisation EDGE says that 2/3 of teachers regard their knowledge of apprenticeships as poor, and that just 1 in 4 teachers recommend apprenticeships over higher education. Now, as an MP, I intend to play my part in changing the way we regard apprenticeships. I want a Britain where not just teachers, government and businesses promote apprenticeships. I want a Britain where apprenticeships are actually seen as the #1 option by both students and their families. I want a Britain where to be an apprentice is seen as highly regarded as going to Cambridge University or any university, for that matter. Now, this government stood on a platform of change. People voted for change and they've got it. But if you look closely, the policies of the coalition government are also about conserving some of the great traditions of our history. And apprenticeships are just one such tradition. Records of British apprenticeships date from the 12th century. By the 14th century, they were flourishing, and parents could apprentice their child to a master craftsman from age 14 to 19. They would pay a premium to the craftsman and a contract would be signed. In 1563, the Statute of Artificers and Apprentices was passed to regulate and protect apprentices, forbidding anyone from practising a trade without first serving as an apprentice. From 1601, parish apprenticeships were introduced under Queen Elizabeth's Poor Law. They were a way of educating poor orphans, boys and girls, to train them in farm labour, brickmaking and running a 17th century household. We should remember that the worshipful livery companies of the City of London were the apex of this tradition. They brought rigour to apprenticeships, but also pageantry and cultural prestige, as we see in the engravings of Hogarth and the novels of Charles Dickens. To be a free man of the City of London in a livery company was a higher honour than graduating from Oxford or Cambridge University. That is the kind of prestige that I hope the government will restore to vocational training. I would like to see a Royal Society of Apprentices similar to the Law Society or British Medical Association. This would create a social and professional network similar to that provided by universities. Again, as my honourable friend said, I believe we should have an annual apprenticeships day in every local authority, which would build on the already successful Vocational Qualifications Day and act as a celebration of apprentices like a formal graduation ceremony. In addition, the pageantry that is associated with traditions such as the freedom of the City of London could be expanded and localised and made appropriate for different areas of the British Isles. This would give apprentices a sense of civic pride in their area. Young school pupils would see the example of older apprentices and aspire to join their ranks. In modern times, traditional apprenticeships reached their lowest point, probably in the 1970s. By then, universities were expanding hugely and apprenticeships were allowed almost to vanish. Margaret Thatcher's time, her government introduced the National Vocational Qualifications in an attempt to revive the great British tradition. John Major took it further. In 1994, his Conservative government introduced modern apprenticeships based on proper frameworks. The effort to restore apprenticeships has always been a key priority for Conservatives. Therefore, I'm particularly glad that the Honourable Member for South Holland and the Deepings has had the good sense not just to examine the zeitgeist of the last few years, but also to examine the 1,000-year-old history of apprenticeships in Britain. He is not alone. In the 14th century, it was good practice to employ apprentices from 14 to 19. Nowadays, we have Lord Baker's University Technical College, which will employ apprentices from 14 to 19. There is a lot to learn from the past, and I think these technical colleges will make a huge difference to young people wanting to do vocational education right across our country. As again my honourable friend mentioned, I'm pleased to announce that a proper apprentice will soon serve in my Westminster office. They will be placed at Harlow College and part sponsored by Essex County Council. The Essex County Council wage subsidy for highly skilled apprenticeships is an absolutely pioneering scheme, unique in this country, and could serve as a model for local authorities right across the UK. I would encourage all MPs and ministers to follow suit, and I'm very pleased that the Minister has decided to have an apprentice in his office. In addition to providing a 50% wage subsidy for local apprenticeships in targeted industries, such as engineering and manufacturing, the Essex County Council scheme also funds apprenticeships in deprived areas and for lone parents returning to work, and I think this is something that the Minister should look at. Essex County Council, in my view, have provided a blueprint which could be replicated right across Britain by many other local authorities. And by way of an advert, and I hope Mr Chairman will allow me, I must say that Harlow College runs an excellent course in business administration for apprentices placed in MPs' offices. So if you are going to have an apprentice, Minister, I will happily introduce you to their principal, who you met before the election. His name is Mr Colin Highmarch, as you know. In conclusion, I urge the Government to restore the prestige of apprenticeships and to consider whether local authorities can play a larger role in delivering targeted wage subsidies of apprentices such as they do in Essex. On the prestige side, a great step forward would be the establishment of a Royal Society of Apprentices to replicate the vibrant social life of university and a formal graduation ceremony for every apprentice. I hope that honourable members will have other suggestions too. I welcome the advancement in policy. Despite the troubles we face, this government has provided more funding for apprenticeships than has ever been provided in our history. But as I said before, I want a Britain where apprenticeships are seen as the #1 option by both students and their families. Part of that is about funding, part is about prestige, and part is about local flexibility, encouraging local authorities to support the industrial needs of their area.